Matt, it is so good to see you. We have a very important question today. Should you claim Social Security at 62? Claiming Social Security at 62 may sound appealing, but it, of course, comes with trade offs like reduced lifetime benefits and the Social Security earnings test if you're still working. So let's break down the pros and cons. I was surprised to learn that 1/3 of people claim as soon as they're eligible at 62. It's known as panic claiming. Why is that?
Because people are afraid the Social Security is going to run out of money.
Yeah.
For the last 40 years, there have been projection dates about when we're going to run out. Back in
Mhm.
2019, I think it was around 2034 was the projection. And then a few years later, in 2023, it went down a year to 2033. We're going to run out of money, right? So people fear the bucket being gone, depleted. They want to get every penny that they can now.
Yep.
But we have to keep in mind being depleted is not the right terminology. Running out is not the right terminology. The right term is being underfunded,
Mhm.
meaning roughly 80% of it will still be funded off of projected payroll. So
Mhm.
there could be a reduction unless Congress acts.
Right. Certainly a lot to consider before you claim. Chief among them is the math, right? So let's talk about what you actually give up when you claim early at 62 versus waiting until full retirement age versus waiting until 70.
It's a good dollar amount. I mean, 700 a month at age 62 compared to 1240. Let's just keep it easy and let's just say you almost double your money over the 8-year run. So 8% a year. The dollar amount goes up 8% a year, and it's not like you have to wait to 63 to get that whole 8%. You take that 8%, you divide it by 12, like 0.6%. It goes up roughly a little bit every month until you turn it on. After you turn it on, though, no more 8% a year. We only have the COLA, the cost of living adjustment coming up this year is going to be just under 3%.
Mhm.
So it is an important factor to consider, especially for those that have longevity on their side.
Right, that's a really good point. So now let's talk through the Social Security earnings test, which I feel a lot of people might not be quite so familiar with. Can you explain how this affects people who continue working after claiming early?
I sure can. And I laugh because I have a good friend that we'll talk about here. So if I turn on my Social Security at age 62, now I want to be clear. It's any time before I hit my FRA, my full retirement age.
Right.
My full retirement age, based on the year I was born, is 67. And so it's not the year I decide to retire. That's my retirement age. No, it's a date or an age picked by Congress. And for people born after 1960, it's age 67. So if I retire between 62 and 66, I retired early according to Social Security. So if I decide to keep on working after that and I make more than $23,400, then basically 50% of my Social Security check is going to be taxed,
Mhm.
gone. And so I was laughing a little bit because I had a good friend call me up. This is a few years ago. And 6 months before that, he said, "Matt, I'm thinking about retiring in the future. Just giving you a heads up." Right. And that was the last I heard of him until he calls me freaking out saying, "Matt, I turned on Social Security and they're taking 50% of my check. What's going on?" And I said, "Well, what are you paying yourself?" Because he's a self-employed guy. He goes, "Well, I'm paying myself 100 grand a year." And I go,
Yeah.
"Well, that's why."
Yeah.
And I said, "You better get down there as soon as possible to the Social Security office, turn it off. You have to write a check and pay it back. You have 12 months to do it. If not, this is how it's going to be." And of course, he did it and everything was fine. But
Mm,
it's something to consider and keep in mind, of course.
absolutely. And then what happens to those withheld benefits?
Good question. So you do actually get those back. It's not, a tax penalty gone for life. After you hit your full retirement age, they recalculate your credits, and basically you'll have a higher payout for the rest of your life
Mm,
going forward after your full retirement age.
mhm. So then, Matt, I know that this is something you specialize in, but what should we be considering before deciding if we should claim at 62 versus waiting?
I think the first thing to consider is longevity. What is your lifespan going to
Right.
be? And of course, we never know, but we want to keep that in mind and factor that in. Usually, the break even age for most people is between 79 and 80, right around there. As far as, if I lived to 79, mathematically, I should have waited because now I made a dollar more on my birthday, right? But keep in mind too, if I died a year later at 80, was it really substantially impactful on my lifestyle for living one extra year? Probably not. And maybe I would have had a little bit more enjoyable life if I turned it on a little bit earlier, not a lot earlier. But where it really comes into play is if someone has a long lifespan. If you're living 85, 90 years, then yes, inflation time, you definitely want to consider longevity as far as when you're going to turn it on.
Hmm.
The thing to consider is a spousal benefit. If
Of
I
course.
early
Right.
and I pass away, that affects my wife.
Yep.
Bigger, I can get it before I turn it on. If something happens to me, that's going to be a benefit to my wife as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, but the final question that I would keep in mind is, do you really need the money now? Because if you really need it now, and and you can't cut anything else, and
Right.
that's a question that we have to cover:
Of
is, do
course.
you need the money now, or can you let it roll? If you can let it grow, for most people, it makes sense. But if not, that's a conversation to have with someone specifically about your situation.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Matt, because it really does need to be a conversation, not just one of those online calculators that you can find, because this is going to be one of the most important financial decisions that you make in retirement. So, again, if somebody wants to have that conversation with you, Matt, what's the best way to reach you?
Give us a call, 425-256-3105. And just to recap what you said, there's no one age for everybody, Aaron.
No.
If you see a video that says do this or do that, every situation is different. You need someone that's going to work with you specifically and cover your needs in your life.
Absolutely. Well said. Matt, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Take care, Aaron. Thank you.